Hello, good people. Here's another MGB GT adventure. So I got the 68 MGB here in the garage. Of course, as I said before, I was going to pull the engine out of it and put it in the convertible. This engine's been rebuilt, and everything up under the front end of this car is brand new. All the control arms, the rack, the springs, calipers, all the brake lines are new. So my plan is to pull this engine and transmission out. We're going to use the engine in the convertible. I think that's a 77 MG convertible. And I've already removed the new brake master cylinder and clutch master cylinder, which we're going to put on the 74 MGB GT. I'm thinking about removing all these new brake lines. I mean, those look fairly decent. It's just a lot of work to remove them off of here and then remove them off the other car. I am going to remove this whole front cradle section here. The whole front end is just these 4 bolts. There's one there, there's one there, and there's 2 over here. I am going to remove this whole front end section and put it up under the 74 because the 74, all the front end bushings, A-frame bushings, all that stuff is wore out from sitting. And I'm going to remove all the calipers, just the whole setup, and just roll the whole thing under there and bolt it up. This car has a brand new gas tank in it, so I'm going to be removing it. It also has new leaf springs, new rear calipers, and brake hoses. So all that's going to go on the 74. But it has this double master cylinder setup. Like I said, one is for the clutch, and well, I think that's for the brake, and this is for the clutch. And it basically just sitting on this holder here, and it has the pins that goes through the pedals, which goes through the body of the car. So I'm going to be putting that whole setup on the 74. I think he said he didn't put any brake fluid in the clutch, the brake master cylinder, but they did have some in the clutch, because when I took the line off, which I got it plugged, a little brake fluid had trickled out. So gonna be pleased to get that on. We get that car where it's running and driving. Well, it's running. We'll get it where it's driving, got brakes and everything, and we'll get to check out the transmission. Just in case, the clutch in the 74 is no good. This car has a brand new clutch in it, and I think he said the transmission's been rebuilt. So, but it's got a lot of rust up under the structure of the body where the fenders go. I think I showed you guys that a while ago in the video. That's what made him stop working on it. And the body is just rotted in half right there, and he said it goes further into the unibody section of the car. So that's why they just was going to just swap everything over to another one, and then the project just got put behind. But anyway, that's basically it. I'm going to get ready and pull this engine and transmission out and the front end, and we're going to be doing a lot of swapping and stuff like that. So just keep your fingers crossed everything works. So now I'm up under the MG, and we're going to remove the clutch slave cylinder here, which is new. Here's the line coming from the metal line up top
to this braided line and then to the clutch slave cylinder. Transmission looks real nice. It does have a new start on it, I see. Which we'll get that removed. I just got those wires unhooked on the starter. And that cross member back there. And the drive shaft. And should be ready to pull this baby out. And then we're going to tackle the front end. So let me get some tools and we'll get that off.
So now we got the prop shaft out. That's what the British call it, the prop shaft. Here's the transmission cross member. Right now up under there, the only thing is holding the transmission up is the secondary part of the frame here. You can see where the transmission is loose from the cross member, but it's sitting on the frame right here. So it's going to have to jack up and come straight out if you're going to pull the motor and transmission together. So what I'm thinking of doing now is just go ahead and drop the whole front end, even though I'm pulling it off anyway, because you can see how deep that oil pan is. It's going to hit right on the back side of that what do you call it, your front frame, the front end part. It's going to hit right there. So if I just go ahead and drop that, which I'm going to take the front end out of it anyway, it should just slide right on out of there, motor and transmission. I won't have to worry about picking it up high over that. There's my cord here. This car is really rotten. Now you can really see why they stopped working on it. It's got a lot of rust, a lot of cracked paint. There's Bondo. Right here, somebody Bondoed it, and it's just rotten. So overall, the floorboards are in good shape. It just sucks that the rest of the car ain't. You can see where the frame is, the body rotted out here. Looks like somebody probably put a jack under there at one time, but I think the floor's got a little rot there. But so anyway, it's got a brand new gas tank up under here, so I'll be taking that out. And I'm also going to take these brand new shock preservers, or whatever they call them. They connect to the rear end. These have been rebuilt. I think he said you can't buy them new. You have to buy them rebuilt or have yours rebuilt. So they connect. These cars don't have shocks. They have those little hydraulic things there, and it has an arm that comes off of it, and it goes down to the rear end right there. Get a good view of there it is. So we'll be pulling that off too. Probably pulling all the brake lines off the back and the brake hoses. It's got a brand new Mercy brake cable. Probably snatching that off. I don't have a fuel pump on it though. So anyway, I guess I'll get to getting the tires off of it, unhooking the brake hoses, and we'll get this I guess you call it a K member. We'll get that out the front. Well, I did some thinking. I'm just going to go ahead and just get the engine and transmission on out, because either way I still got to lift it up over these studs that comes through the motor mount. The studs, they come through the frame, and then the motor mount bolts to them. So probably still going to have to pick it up anyway, so I'm just going to go ahead and let's just get the engine and transmission on out of there, and then we'll worry about that front end. Okay, I got the cherry picker hooked up. I got a jack up under the transmission. I guess I'm gonna have to pick up and pull the jack at the same time. Try not to scratch the valve cover up because it's got fresh paint on it, but I don't know if that's going to work. Looks like it's just going to pick up on the back of the engine, not the front. Your old trusty crowbar here. There we go. I'm going to have to come out. This is the weirdest setup. I have to come out at the same time. Like we're against the frame. It's coming. Oh, we're against the starter. It's like pulling a newborn baby out of something. I think what the problem is, it's got this funny. Oh, we're on the jack. That's what it is. Oh, we're hung up on the frame at the back. I think we're free now. There we go. Never seen that change of that, dude. Alright. So we're almost out of the cocoon. We're gonna go ahead and pull this bad boy the rest of the way out of there. This transmission is long like an 18-wheeler transmission or something. Got some length to it. Before you see how long the transmission is, I've never seen a transmission this long on a little small size car. I mean, it's almost half the length of the car from the firewall to up under the back seat. I pulled the shifter out. It's 3 bolts. What is that? A Moog? Moog? Mowag? Well, it's the same name as the exhaust manifold. And the block. This is 1800 size engine. At least we don't have to worry about any transmission fluid flying out everywhere. Put the rest of the way out. Finally. So, you can see clear up under there now. So what I'm going to do with this front end, like I was saying, these 4 bolts on each side, and undo the steering linkage, and drop this whole K-member away from up under it. But she is out. Look how long the transmission. Oh man. So anyway, let me get this thing put up into place, and then we'll work on getting the front end out. So I decided why I got it in the air before I set it down. I think what I'm going to do is go ahead and take the starter off, and I'm going to separate the transmission from the engine. That thing's got a starter on it. It's a new starter, but look at the size of that. That looks like almost like a Ford starter. Well, it looks like a mix between a Ford starter and a GM starter, because you got your cylinder oil on here, and then you got this flat flange with the 2 bolts like a Ford. So I'm going to go ahead and snatch it off, and we'll get the transmission separated, and it make it a lot more easier to move around. Now, just got to get to that bolt in there. Get some tools. I tell you what, they really know how to deal with these things. Then you got a bolt here. It's like a 14. So, get it out there. One bolt there, and another one way back in the back. And there's a bracket that's blocking it. Got that must be 10. Yes. So stuff in the way, that's one thing. If I fry it, it's not tight. Just enough to get to that bolt. A little bit more. Now we should be able to get to this bolt that's it's right in behind the starter next to the block. Put that there. I don't see it. But I'll show you once I get the starter out. Which that bracket, of course, you can't even get to the bolt because there's a piece of the starter that's blocking it. Wow. I'll show you what I'm talking about. Let me get my light. So, if you look close where that bolt is, that bracket there, when I put my socket, I don't know if I can get in there, put my socket down through there, that little bracket is like right in the way. But there's a Carter pin that's sticking out of the starter. You can barely see that rusty pin. I can't get up in there because that Carter pin is blocking the side of the bolt. So I don't know how he got that in there. So I'll probably have to use a wrench. So let me do some MacGyvering on that, and then we'll get it off. So what I did, this pin, this was really, I think this holds the Bendix. Not the Bendix, but your starter gear that kicks out to make it engage to the flywheel. This pin just kind of slides back. So I was able to get a socket extension. There we go. Brand new big boy starter. Look at that. That's about 350 Chevrolet starter. A lot of weight. So now we got that unhooked. I'm gonna let it down, and we'll go ahead and break this transmission away. I can see that it's got a new flywheel and clutch in there. That looks brand new. Looks like it's kind of got the teeth a little bit. It looks like oh, that's new. What she said, everything was new on the engine. So anyway, let me get these bottom bolts out of there while we got it in the air at least. These bolts right here, which is looks like a 14, possibly. Nope, that's ½ inch. So we'll get a ½ inch. Socket. ½ inch wrench. almost everything's got washers and neoprene locking nuts. So that concludes takes care of all the bolts at the bottom. So I'm gonna let it down now. And we'll get the bolts out of the top and then we'll split it. Looks like a brand new clutch that's on the back of there, which he said he wasn't being cheap on putting it together. He was going to build it for himself to drive till he found out the rust issues. So everything is practically new. You can see the clutch. Probably got a resurfaced flywheel on it. So let's look at the throwout bearing, which that looks new. Up in there, we'll get a closer look at that. Get you guys off the tripod. So yeah, the throwout bearing's new. The clutch is new. All right. So now I get it tucked away, get everything put up, and then we'll move along with getting the front end off this thing so we can get it ready to swap. So now it's time to remove this K-member frame section. What I'm going to have to do is take the rack and pinion completely off because there's no space between that steering knuckle and the end of the steering column. There's no space for me to move that so it can easily slide off. It's kind of in a bind because the way the shaft is. So I was going to try and just drop the front end and just leave it all connected. But I don't think it's going to slide off there easy. I'm going to see though. But I've already got the brake lines undone. You see it's got some brake fluid down there. So next thing is to undo this sway bar. It's just 4 bolts. Undo that and just let it hang down. And the springs and everything is still up inside of there compressed. So I won't have to worry about undoing that. Of course, this is the shock, like I was showing on the back. Hydraulic shock, which that one's been rebuilt. So I'm going to try and take this rack off. I'm just going to go ahead and take the rack and pinion off, set it to the side, and that way I ain't got to worry about the shaft sticking up too far when I get ready to roll it out. And we'll go from there. Okay, now we'll go ahead and put this.
Now I'm going to go up top. I'm going to take those 4 bolts loose on the rack. So, I must have another on the other side. Nuts and bolts flying everywhere. Alright, rack is loose. So it should just slide right on off of there. Real easy. So rack. Good thing this thing don't have power steering. So there is the rack and pin, if you can see that. Set your set. So now I got to get these 4 bolts loose. I'm gonna put the jack up under it, and hopefully it will be stabilized on the jack. I thought about putting the cherry picker around it. Brake lines right here. And just lift it up and then set it down. Wrap a chain around it, which could work better than the jack is still. Well, I can drag it out. But anyway, let's see what we can do with that, with these 4 bolts here. Move all this stuff out of the way. Probably just put a board up under there and just lower it down that way, which would probably be easier. These are 3/4. So, got a board. Put this board on the jack like that. Really can't hurt anything if it comes over. Sure it's up on the center of it. Like so. And I gotta get these brake lines. They're like hung into the frame here. Brake lines out of the way. So now, let's see my impact 3/8. Get these bolts loose. One. studs made onto it, so it should just drop straight down once we get the bolts out. There's all 4 bolts. So now we should be able to lower this thing down. Everything is unhooked. Well, I did forget one thing, the sway bar. So let me get to the front and we'll put that on. We'll take that off. So there's 4 bolts holding the sway bar, and they are 1/2-inch bolts, which I sort of forgot about. Luckily, I didn't lower it down and forget that it was still connected. Get my socket, and we'll get that out of the way. Man, this thing's got nuts and bolts everywhere. I mean, they got like 2 washers on each bolt. At the end, I'm gonna have a whole box of brand new nuts and bolt washers, but they're all at fine thread. I don't think they're metric. There's the sway bar. So let's see what she comes down. I don't know what that sound was. Whoa! Down a little bit too fast. Oh, that was just the, well, it's off. I figured that was gonna happen. Okay. Let's get down here. Didn't come down like I really wanted it to, but it's down. So now she is almost like totally stripped. No front end whatsoever. And here's the piece I was after. So I'm gonna clean it up, and we'll get the 74 in here, and we'll get this up under and get the other one out. But it is out. It has new calipers on it, new bushings all the way through. So let me get the 74 in here, and we'll start on it. So this is the 74. We got it in, and as you can see, all the bushings are pretty much dry rotted. And I bet you those shocks are not even charged anymore from sitting. You can see that one's been leaking
has all that oil up under it. So that one needs to be rebuilt. So that's why you see what I'm getting at now. I want to change the front end off of this one, which has rebuilt parts, over to the 74, which it has a front end that's been sitting since 1995. So anyway, that's my main objective, is to get this front end off, get the new one on, and then I'll show you the outcome. So further ado, I'm gonna get to work and I'll show you what I come up with at the end. So now the front end is completely removed off of the 74, and I'll show you what it looks like. This one right here has got a lot of rust. Like I said, this hydraulic shock here, it's actually leaking, so it needs to be rebuilt. All the bushings and stuff are just rusted and rotted, cracking. This one's actually leaking too. I didn't see this one. So that's why I want to change the front end. Which I tried to clean this one up. It's about 30 something degrees outside. I was going to take it out there and pressure wash it, but I said, nah. I just kind of wiped it off. But you can see how clean it is. So here's the rack and pinion, which I ran into a pickle with it. I couldn't get this linkage off of the steering column shaft, so I had to end up cutting it. I worked on it for about 2 hours. It was just completely rusted on the splines. But you can see the boots are busted on the rack. So probably still work. These things are not power steering. It's just got the regular manual rack and pinion. So, but still, I mean, since I was dropping the frame, I'm gonna use the other one. I think the other one of the boots has got a slight little tear in it, which I can replace. So, but you can see it's completely gutted up under there. Brake lines look alright. I'll probably still change them. I can change them with the front end up under it. Here's the other rack. So now the fun begins, putting this one back under there and get the rack and pinion back in and the steering hook back up and put the wheels on it, and we are good to go on the front end anyway. Alright, got it up under the car. Kind of got it budget cord to the jack. So I'm going to have to try and line these studs up. Go back to the frame. Oh, I got the front studs. Then I'll go to the back and put those in. Thing about it, these are really not studs. They're long bolts that go through the frame, and you're supposed to go through the bottom of the frame with a long extension in the socket. Tighten them up. Well, you have somebody up top, I guess, to put the nuts on. The problem I'm having, I can't get to the rack and pinion bolt up under the radiator on the driver's side. So I'm going to have to leave the frame sitting like this and put the rack and pinion on, and then
finish jacking it up there, because I don't want to take the bottom radiator hose off. But anyway, you can see I got her jacked up there. She's kind of leaning. I got one of those transmission platform things on my jack, on my I think that's a 3-ton jack, and like I said, I got the bungee cords holding it on. So what I'm gonna do now is get the rack and pinion bolted to the frame, and I gotta go to the back and slide the bolts through and try and hope that I can tighten it up, put some vice grips on top to hold the nuts while I tighten them up at the bottom. So just want you to see it going up there. So it's going up, so we should have it in there in a few, and button it down. Alright folks, so the entire front K-member, cradle, front end, whatever you want to call it, is now up under the 74. Only thing I got to do is put the tires on it, and she is ready to rip with this part anyway. So next I'll be doing is getting the fuel tank out of the 68, the fuel tank and the rear shocks. I don't think he replaced the leaf springs. I think he just put new rear shocks. But I'm going to get the brake lines off the back, the brake hoses. I still got to get the slave cylinder. I just kind of left it hanging there. And then after that, we should be able to take this puppy down the road, bleed the brakes up. I am going to get all the rear brake stuff. I bet you the rear wheel cylinders are probably rotted. So I'm probably just going to pop the backing plates off and swap all that over. And we'll go from there. So just stay tuned. I'll try and do a video on swapping some more stuff. I'm not sure. I might just swap it over and get the brakes and stuff bled up. Do a little video on that and get this thing down the road. So anyway, just stay tuned, and y'all have a good night or good afternoon or good morning, depending on where you're at. All right.